Well, I'll tell you one thing. The Bismarck is certainly giving the Vanguard a run for its money in terms of the most buffed battleship in this game. Hello, I am Xarkun, and this is World of Warships Legends. Today I've got a game in the Bismarck for you. It's a highlight from my update stream because the Bismarck was buffed. Now, the game is, of course, a capture the base mode game on everybody's favorite map, Two Brothers, or, as some say, Dos Hermanos. Now, what was the buff on the Bismarck this time? Well, this buff was pretty minimal. It was, in fact, only a buff to Bismarck's accuracy, a 5% dispersion buff, if I am not entirely incorrect. In fact, let's take a look at the patch notes. I've got them right in front of me. Yes, so German ships receiving buffs in this update. Number 1, Tirpitz, shell grouping increased by 6%. Torpedo tubes armor against HE shells increased as well on the Tirpitz. So Tirpitz gets a 6% buff to shell grouping. Bismarck gets a 5% buff to shell grouping. And I think this follows a previous buff on the Bismarck in which it got something else done to its accuracy. I think that was a dispersion buff. Now, as far as I understand things, the difference between shell grouping and dispersion is as follows. When you shoot a salvo somewhere, there is an oval that doesn't appear in the game, but the oval is basically your aim point, and within that oval, your shells can disperse. So essentially, you line up an oval on a ship, you pull the trigger, the shells go out, and they disperse within that oval. It's kind of like the dive bomber reticle, I guess, on the aircraft carriers. You know, if you're dropping dive bombs from a CV plane squadron, then you got an oval on the water, and inside of that oval, your bombs will disperse. I think it's basically the same story with shells fired from main battery guns. So dispersion means that they will land closer together within the oval dispersion circle, or the oval will be tighter if you increase the decrease the dispersion, rather. So that's one aspect of accuracy. And then the shell grouping, which is the buff that the Bismarck actually received, is another aspect entirely. And that refers to when you shoot a salvo. You'll notice, I'm not sure if I'm going to take a shot at this York or not. In fact, I think I'm going to go behind this island and not actually be able to shoot at him at all. So I think we're going to have to aim at somebody else. Perhaps this Gneisenau out here. Are we going to shoot at him, maybe? Yes, looks like we're going to do that. And we'll take a look. As the shells fly out, you'll notice that they kind of group up together, right? Well, in that particular salvo, they didn't, but if you've ever shot salvos from battleships or cruisers, and you notice like two shells hanging right on top of each other, practically touching, well, obviously that is what shell grouping refers to. It refers to how tightly the shells group up together, not exactly how they disperse within the invisible dispersion oval that gets laid down every time you fire the guns. So I think that a dispersion buff to accuracy is probably a more valuable buff than shell grouping, because who cares how close your shells are together if they're going to disperse across a wider area, right? What you really want is dispersion. Nevertheless, the Bismarck is not exactly known as the most accurate ship in the game. In fact, German battleships are known for their rather poor main gun accuracy. So any kind of buff to the accuracy is necessarily going to help the Bismarck. Is it a night and day difference? Absolutely not. It is not a night and day difference. In fact, I really didn't notice it that much at all. So if you are not sold on the Bismarck because you don't like its inaccurate guns, well, this new buff has not exactly made it noticeably more accurate, at least not in my opinion. Now, the previous buff did make it, I think, noticeably more accurate, but that buff has applied since whenever it got put out. So really, I don't think this is all that much of a difference. The buff on the turrets might be more significant because supposedly it protects the torpedo tubes more against high explosive, and that might be useful if you actually want to use your torpedoes and you're taking a lot of fire and you find that they get knocked out a lot of the time. Frankly, I don't regularly play the turrets that much, so I don't really know how much of an issue that is, but, you know, it is what it is. In any case, really the reason I wanted to talk about this and show it to you is because this game is quite interesting. Thus far, we have managed to dispatch with 3 enemy ships, and basically single-handedly overpowered this flank on Two Brothers. Now the Lenin is the only enemy ship left in the area, and as you can see, he is turning and tucking tail to run. What is the reason that I have been firing high explosive at him, you might ask? Well, I do have Henry J. Hyde as the commander of this particular ship. As you can see, I've got a full secondary build in progress. But there is a commander as one of Henry J. Hyde's inspirations. I think his name is Justinian Lyons the 13th or something. He was one of the Warhammer commanders, and his base trait increases the fire chance of your ship's guns, and this increase to fire chance applies to both the main guns and the secondaries. It increases the fire chance when fully maxed by an astronomical percentage. I think it's like 20% or something. The catch is that buff is only in effect when the repair party or the heal is active. So if you have that guy as an inspiration on, say, your German battleship commander, every time you use the heal, you get a 20% higher fire chance. Wow, what a tongue twister that was to say. You get a 20% higher fire chance on both your secondaries and your main guns, which is why I was shooting high explosive, I think, when the heal was active, in order to increase the chance that I would get a fire on those particular targets. In any case, we backed up the enemy into their own base. It is 4 versus 5, though, so they do have a ship count advantage versus us. Now we're shooting at this enemy Georgia out here. We don't want to push too far past this mountain because there's a York and some other battleship out there. But you'll see we've got a friendly battleship moving up the center channel. The attention of the York and the other battleship behind the island has been captured by that friendly battleship. We're trying to take out the York, but to no avail. 2 over-penetrations, and it appears that the York has probably torpedoed that battleship, and in fact the York goes down to the Lenin's guns, with the Lenin getting the kill secure after that battleship was hit by the York's torpedoes. Lenin is giving us broadside. Our guns are not reloaded. We only get 1 shot off at the Lenin, and the results are, well, you could say they're lackluster. They're no results, essentially. Lenin almost dead, though. That salvo is not quite enough to take him out. Our secondaries are doing the work, but he really needs to go down before he does any more damage to us. Unfortunately, we have become the focus of every visible enemy ship, and probably the invisible enemy destroyers as well. So we've got a Georgia and another battleship both shooting at us. We're the only target over here we can see. Our teammate next to us is an unspotted destroyer. So obviously these guys have nobody to shoot at but me. I don't really want to push out right now. The Georgia is coming up on my flank, and if he moves further in that direction, then he's going to have access to my broadside. If I push out, then he's going to have access to my broadside even quicker. And as you can see by the torpedoes there is also at least 1, but probably 2 enemy destroyers over here. Plus that York is still floating around. So in situations like this, I think it's always helpful to remind people that German battleships, while they are tanky, they are not invincible. And if you push them out into a cluster of, what is this, 5 enemy ships, if you even push them out into a cluster of 3 enemy ships, you're not going to last for long. No matter how good your armor is, there's no ship in this game that can stand up to that kind of focused firepower. And you can see that we're being focused here by all of these ships. Somehow our destroyer has managed to get himself spotted and killed, so we are alone. We just have 1 battleship left. I think it might be a Jean Bart, but he's going to be of no help to us because he's still floating around in our cap circle, and thus we are here to receive a death by 1,000 cuts from the shots that hit us, launched by the Georgia, the Lenin, and this York. And, you know, maybe we'll take a torpedo before we go down. However, we have lit 8 fires with the help of our fancy fire build, and we've racked up 118,000 damage using a combination of the Bismarck's main guns, its secondaries, and the fires that we started. We get the high caliber there as we're trying to reverse out of danger, but our attempts are futile. We get lit on fire by the York, and we have no hit points left, so we actually get taken down by the Georgia for the killing blow in this game. And unfortunately, this game is going to end in a loss. But I thought I'd put it up to talk a little bit about the Bismarck's accuracy buff, and just to show you this game, if you happen to miss the stream, because I know not everybody watches the streams, and I don't know whether people actually go back and watch the replays of the streams after they have occurred live. So thought this might be an interesting game for you guys to see. Unfortunately, it ends with our defeat. I'll put the battle results screen up here now. And with that, I will say thank you so much for watching. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And I will see you next time. Goodbye.